Hey, welcome back to Better Commander. I'm your host, Nikki G. Today we're going to be talking about Syr Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. This is my personal commander deck. I always wanted a commander that dealt with equipment. Never really saw one that attracted my interest, but when I saw this Mardu knightly hero charging into battle holding a flaming sword, I kind of knew this was the commander for me. Alright, so let's read the card. Syr Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. 3 red, white, and a black. Legendary creature, human knight. She's got vigilance and menace. Whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, you draw a card and lose 1 life. So that is a mandatory ability, it's not a May ability. Equipment you control have Equip Knight 0. Syr Gwyn is a 5/5, so not bad stats for a Voltron commander. I built this deck with Voltron strategy in mind. However, if Syr Gwyn gets removed, and she costs 6, we're going to need to include some knights that can carry our swords into battle and act as backup commanders in case Syr Gwyn gets removed a couple times. Okay, so when building a Mardu deck like this with so much going on, you want cards that tick as many boxes as possible when you're thinking about your strategies in this type of deck. So the first strategy we're going to talk about is knights. What knights we want to use to carry our swords in the battle, what equipment synergies we have, and what are excellent cards to run when you're running a lot of equipment, what equipment specific ramp cards and or artifact specific ramp cards we want to use, what our card advantage looks like, and our equipment itself. So we're going to be running quite a bit. So we think we need, for Syr Gwyn, we need haste, because when she comes down on the battlefield, you want her to be able to swing as soon as possible. We want evasion, we want protection, and we want to be dealing as much damage as possible. I also included in this deck a Sunforger package. Sunforger is a really fun card. I'll talk a little bit about it at the end. And what are some combat enhancement cards that we can use to really stick it to our enemies. All right, so let's talk about some knights and what strategy boxes they tick. So we have Fervent Champion, 1 red for a 1/1. He's got first strike and haste. When Fervent Champion attacks another target knight you control gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. Equip abilities you activate that target Fervent Champion cost 3 less to activate. So if we get some equipment out early, we can have this fine young gentleman who's also carrying a flaming sword carry our flaming swords into battle. We have Danitha Capuchin, Paragon. So she's a legendary creature, human knight, first strike, vigilance, lifelink. Aura and equipment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So this crosses our knight and ramp cost reducer and equipment strategies. Bloodsworn Steward is a 4/4 for 4. Flying commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and have haste. So this is going to beef up Syr Gwyn when she comes down. It's also going to give her haste. So this is one of my favorite cards for the deck, Bailin, Wandering Knight. He's a 3/3 for 4, first strike. He has double strike as long as 2 or more equipment are attached, and you can kind of suck all the equipment that you have onto the battlefield at instant speed onto Bailin for 1 and a white. This is has a threat of activation effect, so if you swing in and you have various equipment on the battlefield, you can kind of just put everything on Bailin. It makes blocking complicated for your foes. He serves as a great substitute commander in the event that Syr Gwyn gets wiped. Cavalier of Dawn is a great card. It's an elemental knight, 4/6 for 5. Vigilance. When Cavalier of Dawn enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token. So this can take out Rhystic Study. It can take out all these troublesome enchantments that people tend to run. When Cavalier of Dawn dies, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. So Cavalier of Dawn I had out before I had Syr Gwyn, last game I played, and all of these things kind of came into effect, and when it eventually got board wiped, I got back Loxodon Warhammer from my graveyard to my hand, which was kind of a boon for me. So Lonerider is another interesting little card. It's a creature human knight, 1/1 for 2, first strike, lifelink. And it's got, at the beginning of the end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, transform Lonerider. It transforms into It That Rides as 1, kind of a melding of the horse and guy. And it's a 4/4 with First Strike, Lifelink, and Trample, which is not a knight. However, it's just kind of got a beefy stat line, and I thought it was a cool card. This deck originally started out as a budget deck, so I think that's just a holdover from those days. Alright, if you're running equipment, you should probably run Sram, Senior Edificer. He's a 2/2 for 2. Whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, draw a card. I'm not running any auras or vehicles, but I'm running lots of equipment, and Sram is great to get out early. Godo Bandit Warlord enters the battlefield, searches you out in equipment. He's here more for the toolbox aspect. I don't have any combos with Godo. I just think it's a great card. Stonehewer Giant is a 4/4 for 5 giant warrior. He's got Vigilance, and he's got 1 and a white tap. Search your library for an equipment card and put it onto the battlefield. So kind of the cool thing with Stonehewer Giant is if he attacks, he has Vigilance. You can do this at instant speed, go get some nasty equipment and put it on him while your opponents are contemplating blocks. Pure Steel Paladin is another one of my favorite cards for this deck. When Double Masters first came out, after a couple weeks, this card was literally $2, so I bought one. Pure Steel Paladin is a 2/2 for 2. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Love that bit of text. And he has Metalcraft. Equipment you control have equipped 0 as long as you control 3 or more artifacts, which, since all of our ramp is artifacts and all of our equipment is artifacts, Pure Steel Paladin will achieve Metalcraft relatively quickly. I am fortunate enough to own a copy of Stoneforge Mystic, and it's kind of a no-brainer in this deck if you have one. So it's a 1/2 for 2 core artificer. When Stoneforge Mystic enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So it's an equipment tutor. Then shuffle your library, and then for 1 white and tap, you can put an equipment card from your hand onto the battlefield. So Hammer of Nazan is a great option to search out with this because you put it onto the battlefield and it goes onto one of your creatures. Open the Armory is just an equipment tutor. Search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle your library. Alright, this is a true story. I bought a bulk box from a woman who lived about an hour away from me for $35. And inside that box I found a Sensei's Divining Top in heavily played condition, as well as a Steel Shaper's Gift, also in heavily played condition. So Steel Shaper's Gift is a 1-mana equipment tutor at sorcery speed. Great card for this deck. Sigarda's Aid is a 1-mana enchantment. You may cast aura and equipment spells as though they had flash. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach it to target creature you control. So the flash clause kind of makes things interesting because you can cast equipment during your combat phase when they're declaring blockers, or you can pass the turn holding up mana for removal. If the removal isn't needed, you can cast your equipment and put it directly onto one of your knights. This deck is fairly mana hungry, so I included a lot of sources of artifact, ramp, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Thran Dynamo. I included Knight of the White Orchid, which is also a 2/2 with First Strike that can carry our equipment quite well. Sword of the Animus, which just had a reprint. I would suggest buying one if you don't already have one. And I included Smothering Tithe, which is kind of an auto-include in any white deck like this. I am fortunate enough to have several copies of Smothering Tithe. I bought when it was first spoiled, and it was only a couple dollars. I also included Dowsing Dagger, which is an equipment that transforms into a land that can tap for 3 mana, which is a great include in this deck. Some miscellaneous card advantage: Stormfist Crusader, black and a red for a 2/2 human knight with Menace. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card and loses 1 life. This is going to keep our hand full. Murderous Rider is a removal and a knight wrapped into 1. I consider this card advantage just because of its utility. Esper Sentinel is an amazing card in this deck. It's 1 white mana for a 1/1 artifact creature human soldier, so it's not a knight. However, whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. So that could potentially shoot up if we equip him with some of our equipment as well. I included some of our black staple card draw spells: Read the Bones, Siphon Mind. These are great in this deck in case you start stalling out early. Mask of Memory is an equipment. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw 2 cards. If you do, discard a card. This is also great for maintaining a full hand early game. All right, let's get into our equipment. Sword of Vengeance is a 3 mana. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, has First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste, equip 3. Chariot of Victory, equipped creature has First Strike, Trample, and Haste, equip 1. Fleet Feather Sandals, 2 mana. Equipped creature has Flying and Haste, equip 2. You'll notice that each of these cards at the end of their abilities has the 2 words and haste. We want Gwyn to hit the battlefield and start swinging in as soon as possible. Straight out of Modern Horizons 2, Kaldra Complete, 7 mana legendary artifact equipment. It's got Living Weapon, Indestructible. Equipped creature gets +5/+5 and has First Strike, Trample, Indestructible, Haste. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature. This is a great card to include in this deck. It protects itself and it protects our commander. I have Swiftfoot Boots, Commander Staple, 2 mana. Equipped creature has Hexproof and Haste, equip 1. Assault Suit, equipped creature gets +2/+2, has Haste, and can attack you or a planeswalker you control. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may have that player gain control of equipped creature until the end of turn. If you do, untap it. And has equip 3. So Assault Suit you have to be a little bit careful with. This came up in one of the games I played with this deck, that the controller, once I gave him Syr Gwyn, had the opportunity to destroy Assault Suit and then would have retained control of Gwyn. And that would not have been good. So you have to make little deals with people if you want to be able to start passing it around with Assault Suit. Okay, one more haste enabler, Haunted Cloak. It's a 3 mana equipment. Equipped creature has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. Equip 1. I included Tenza Godo's Maul, as Syr Gwyn is both legendary and red. I also have a couple copies of Ember Cleave. This is a great card. I picked it up very cheap back when Throne of Eldraine first released. It has the added advantage of having flash and costing 1 less to cast for each attacking creature you control. This usually makes it cost about 4. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has Double Strike and Trample, and when it enters the battlefield you attach it to target creature you control. I included Loxodon Warhammer, great card in this deck. The incidental lifelink comes in real handy because you're drawing cards and losing life. Inquisitor's Flail is a bit of a controversial include in this deck because it can take your commander out just as quickly as it can take other people out, but I think anything that doubles damage in this deck is going to be good. I included Black Blade Reforged. This is a great artifact in this deck to increase Gwyn's damage. And Grafted Exoskeleton is worth highlighting. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has Infect. It's got some other text on the bottom, but in any case, if you can give Syr Gwyn Double Strike and Trample with these other things, you're going to infect people out really fast. I included some larger equipment here where the equip cost is very high because Syr Gwyn cheats that. Argentum Armor, equipped creature gets +6/+6. When it attacks, destroy target permanent. Colossus Hammer only costs 1, but has an equip 8, which should be negligible when we have Gwyn on the battlefield. Equipped creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying. Darksteel Plate, once you get this onto Gwyn, it's going to be a hard target to remove. It has to either be exiled or you have to be able to exile the creature that it's attached to. Hammer of Nazan also grants Indestructible, and it has this added text: whenever Hammer of Nazan or another equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach that equipment to target creature you control. So equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has Indestructible. This is one of the cards that I seek out most often in this deck with any of our tutors. One of the most fun aspects of running a Boros equipment deck is the ability to run Sunforger. Sunforger is a 3 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +4/+0, great for our Voltron strategy. You pay 1 red, a white, unattached Sunforger, and you can search your library for a red or white instant card with converted mana cost 4 or less. Cast that card without paying its mana cost, then shuffle your library. So you want to pack in a lot of removal in any case. So Anguish Unmaking is a great card to get with this. Exile target non-land permanent, you lose 3 life. That takes care of just about anything. Cards like Generous Gift, Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares. You can also include protection spells like Boros Charm, which is pretty cheap right now, and Teferi's Protection to protect your board and or protect your Voltron commander. And I guarantee you, something no one will see coming is if you get a counter spell. You can grab Lapse of Certainty, Tybalt's Trickery as well. I included some additional Boros combat enhancement cards. Relentless Assault gives us an extra combat phase. Silverblade Paladin gives whatever creature it's paired with double strike. And I included Gisela, Blade of the Gold Knight, which is a 5/5 flying first strike angel for 7 mana. If a source would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, that source deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. So that also includes our opponents damaging each other. If a source would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent half that damage rounded up. I plan on doing a more budget-friendly version of this list in the future, but for now I hope you guys enjoyed the tour of my Syr Gwyn personal commander deck. I'm going to leave a deck list down in the description, and this is going to be Nicky G signing off.